Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, we have with us a very special guest. His name is Reynolds. Ian is a partner and chief solutions architect at ZipTech, a software development firm focused on helping businesses of all sizes in the United States solve their core problems with software. They empower entrepreneurs, growth companies, enterprises, and visionary firms to achieve greater profitability and efficiency, valuation, and ultimate success by building the right tools through custom software. Ian has spent the better part of his career in consulting and has served in diverse industries as finance, oil and gas, retail power, field services, midstream energy, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, transactional finance, mergers and acquisitions, restructuring, e-commerce, retail, and software development. So without further delay, welcome, Ian.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So for our guests that are listening, we'd just like you to relax, plug in your earphones, and let's just dive right into this awesome conversation. So Ian, could you share with us a little bit about your journey, which by the looks of your bio has been quite an extreme journey. I mean, you pretty much have dipped into all industries, from private to public sector. So share with us a little bit about your journey and, how it is that you got to where you are today, being the chief solutions architect and partner at ZipTech.
Sure. So, yeah, I've had the opportunity to see a lot of industries. And I think part of that started with very early on. I was at a number of startups for really right out of college, helped launch like 8 different products to market, saw the gambit really, and then did the MBA route, then jumped into consulting. So right after I completed the MBA, immediately sort of wanted to go into something that would let me see a lot of industries, a lot of verticals. Mm-hmm. And in consulting, I had the opportunity to do that both on the IT side and on the finance side. So really just wonderful opportunity to sort of expand my horizons, these sort of things. Ultimately, wanted to get back to doing my own thing and found a business, ZibTech, and acquired 50% of it. And that's about 3 years ago now.
Okay, so ZipTech, can you tell us a little bit about what ZipTech offers? What problems is ZipTech solving for their customers?
We started as a product company 15 years ago and ultimately grew to the point where, we wanted to sell the business. And then so after 5 years of growing that product, sold it. And then for the last 10 years, we have been providing services to the marketplace for, folks who maybe don't have an engineering team in-house or don't have that engineering competency in-house, but need expertise to build out software or build out a solution that's either custom fit for their business or an adapt to, say, an existing technology for their business. That's primarily what we do.
Could you give me an example of something that you've done to solve your customers' challenges, a software that maybe you've created that's solving that issue?
Sure. So we have a client that is in the healthcare space, and they are running around doing prospective studies for people who have had sort of, strong medical procedures. And they needed a way to capture data that wasn't manual. So before they were using clipboards and paper and, using telephones and dialing out and doing all that stuff manually with a large team of people to get that prospective data. Mm-hmm. We built a solution that automates all of the follow-ups, keeps the data HIPAA compliant, and then also helps them basically have the patient groups be blocked in effectively statistically randomized ways. And it did a couple things, and this is how it ties back to sort of the customer experience. By automating sort of the manual process and then also removing that human element, it actually made it so that the patients who had just gone through these procedures and had opted into these studies were more likely to respond because it was on a medium on their phone or computer that was much more friendly to their time, much more intuitive to interact with, and can be done in maybe 5 minutes.
Okay. So it's almost like you created like a specialized CRM for them that was really built to fit their business model.
In a certain sense, yes. It did all the communication. It managed those individuals. It managed the basically the follow-ups and responses. But then it had a statistical engine behind it that allowed them to make sure that these patients sort of came through in randomized blocks.
Got you. So a big part of software development in a business, right, can definitely impact the quality of the customer experience. We're now in a space globally where, because of this pandemic, a lot of us have been forced to shift how it is that we're looking at the different channels by which we serve our customers, yes? And so it's important to recognize that if it is that we are doing these things, what are some things that we could do to make the channels easier for the customers, less effort for them to exert, less friction? What are maybe 2 to 3 top things as an engineer yourself? You're a solutions architect, so you are able to look at the big picture and maybe give us, some main things that companies need to consider when they're designing this digitized strategy for their business. A lot of them may have been in the digital space, but probably they were not giving it as much priority as they would know because of the fact that their customers have shifted their behavior and they're interfacing more with those platforms than the face-to-face ones.
Right. So I think the first and most important thing is take the customer's problems to the engineers, as opposed to having a frontline person who is maybe just kind of filtering through that customer feedback to then give it to the engineers. I mean, engineers are by nature people who want to build tools to solve problems. Right. And by having a direct pipeline of those, let's say, customer complaints, customer problems, customer issues going to the engineers, as opposed to, maybe filtered by a couple layers, you're going to get results much more quickly. You're going to get results that are ultimately going to solve those problems in probably much more intuitive ways. And then you can turn around and present those solutions to the client. The second thing is figure out where you can, as a business, automate routine, simple tasks for the user, and then figure out how, at the same time of automating that task, I can provide better customer service or better customer experiences in serving that client. Sometimes that's just through an interface, but other times it is making somebody available to pick up the phone, talk with you, walk you through something, just be available really quickly, or provide a quick response to a customer query. So that's the second piece. The third item that we would recommend is intentionally innovate. We think a lot of companies are going to fall behind because they're not spending, sort of like the 3M rule of anywhere from 5 to 10% of profits intentionally to sort of disrupt their own business and produce a solution that's ultimately better. Technology is moving in a direction where its growth is accelerating. Innovation is accelerating, and it's accelerating past any single company's ability to basically keep pace with those changes, right? So an engineer that comes into our organization, probably in about 4 years, they're going to have to retool a little bit because the technology is changing so quick, right? So the guys who are coming right out of college, very valuable because they come with sort of these new skills ingrained. Now we are teaching them, we're training them, we do about 6 months of training, but really, if these guys are not retooling in about 6 years, they become kind of dead weight to a certain extent.
Yeah, almost like they're obsolete. they're no longer relevant because the technology has far superseded what existed 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
Based on your experience, Ian, could you share with us maybe what you think the future of automation looks like for our business?
Yeah, I think automation is going to sort of go into that second category of what I described previously, where companies are going to try to, as much as possible, make it so that you have the equivalent of one-click checkout for an experience or for a result. And it's going to not necessarily remove jobs. I think it's going to make certain jobs more efficient, right? So if you look at the guys at OnCourse Sales Automation, right, they have a bunch of tools combined into one that allow sales teams to be extremely efficient with their time. But it's not that that's eliminating sales jobs. It's actually making them more competitive and making it so that the sales personnel are much more oriented towards quality. And I think you're going to see that be true across pretty much every spectrum, right? Where you're going to get automation, you're going to have a flight to quality second, right? So if I can remove the tedious tasks, then I need to focus on quality. And for the companies that don't focus on quality and don't focus on customer service, customer experience, then I think they're going to sort of fall behind.
Yeah, very true. Agreed. Now, can you share with us how you think technology has disrupted the business industry and how it will continue to do so?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a trend of, still the world is kind of coming online, broadly speaking. You have a trend where folks are moving to these online tools to solve problems. You used to go to the store, buy off-the-shelf software, put it in a CD drive. My computer doesn't even have a CD drive anymore.
No, that's dated for sure.
Yeah, and then do things that way. And so there's still a lot of very prominent, very powerful technologies that have not made their way to the cloud. We have companies here in Salt Lake that we're talking to that are still on, green screens, basically, where a lot of their stuff isn't networked to manage inventory, manage supplies, track quality, track prices, et cetera, or how long things have been in the warehouse. And so there's still, and there's going to be for a long time, I think, a continuing shift towards, cloud first, browser-based technologies that are going to facilitate really kind of things that we already did, but in a way that gives us much more data, much more accessibility, and makes those organizations much more efficient.
Agreed. All right. So, Ian, can you share with us, how do you stay motivated every day?
Yeah, I think it's more of a process of sort of building habits, right? So my day-to-day is very, very different. Every single day is different because we're solving different problems for clients. But, my mornings are pretty routine. My evenings are pretty routine, at least they try to be. And then the sort of natural motivation is, I've got a growing family and want to make sure that they're happy and taken care of. And then I'm asking myself regularly, am I doing something that I find interesting and fulfilling? And then I try to sell myself the first hour of the day to focus on those things, or the last hour of the day to focus on those things. And as long as I'm moving towards that direction, very, very satisfied.
All right. Can you share with us what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Yeah, so try oncourse.com, TRYONCOURSE.com, is just one of those sort of sales automation tools we've been talking about. And, we started using it. We think it's pretty exceptional. It basically is, in our view, sort of the future of CRM. It's all of these tools, dialer, SMS, what have you, sort of rolled into one. And it's going to give us, and it gives our sales team a crazy amount of visibility that we didn't have previously with tools like Salesforce, tools like we were using a phone dialer. We were also using like MailChimp for drip email campaigns. It's got all that stuff built in, and they're just kind of adding more features to it all the time. And we've pretty radically simplified what we're executing in the sales process by moving to one of these sales automation platforms. And basically we don't really know what we would do without that, because everybody sort of refers to it for the data. Everybody sort of refers to it for activity. So it's pretty important.
Yeah, that's your go-to. It's funny you mentioned that because our episode that we released today for the podcast was with their I think it was their chief customer experience officer, or chief sales officer, Jesse Shekingo from Encore's sales platform. So, and they're really disrupting the whole sales initiatives for businesses in terms of, as you said, putting everything in one place. So I think it's really awesome that you mentioned that's your online resource that you definitely can't live without in your business.
Right. Yeah. No, it's been powerful, and they're only coming out with more updates, which has been great.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. Can you share with us one or two books that have had the biggest impact on you? Either a book that you've read recently, or a book that maybe you read a very long time ago, but it still has had a very big impact on you to this day.
Sure. So probably the first book that had a big impact on me was Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations from 1776. I mean, just, reading that, I mean, the man only wrote 2 books. He wrote that book, and then he wrote basically, sort of a moral treatise on basically the Wealth of Nations. It was sort of the prelude to the Wealth of Nations. Both of those books are exceptional, but really Wealth of Nations is absolutely phenomenal and important to understanding really basic economics. The second piece is I think that a lot of the books put out actually, well, not books, but letters put out by Warren Buffett are in many respects. And so he put out a book, like basically one of the meetings that had a collection of all 50 letters. I think that those books are underread, or that those letters are underread, and are really instructive, not only sort of for financial matters, for managing a business, but also in managing. They're great lessons in managing. And I've continually gone back to those resources, both of those, to reread things, take notes, put that online, share my ideas with other people, get their feedback. And so those have been the two most valuable resources for me.
All right. Sounds good. Okay. So Ian, share with us now, what is one thing that's going on in your life that you're really excited about, either something that you're working on to develop yourself or your people?
Yeah, I think internally we have had a pretty wonderful shift in defining within the organization how we want to continually improve our project management processes. Mm-hmm. And going back to the very beginning of the conversation where you're sort of taking that customer feedback, we're being very aggressive, even as a service organization, to take customer feedback and then incorporate that into our sales process, our engineering process. Mm-hmm. We follow sort of a Kanban trunk-based development type methodology, and by taking the sort of consumer feedback or customer feedback, our client feedback, and rolling that into the process, we've really been able to deliver some tremendous results. Now, we're still improving that. We're still making that better. We're still making that, let's call it user-friendly. And there's a lot of runway for us to continue to improve. And I think that's probably the most exciting near-term project we're working on.
All right. Sounds good. Exciting. Okay, so could you share with us, if our listeners listen to this episode, right, or better yet, when they listen to this episode, and they say to themselves, I'd like to learn a little bit more about ZipTech. I'd also probably like to connect with Ian because he could probably offer some good insight. I could follow him and be a part of his community and what he's doing so that I can add better value to my organization and what I am doing. Where can they find you online?
Yeah, great question. So if you go to zibtek.com, zibtek.com, we have a bunch of actually free resources up there, and in our blog, we're constantly sort of posting our findings for things, comparing technologies, et cetera. We're going to be posting our development methodology and our development standards here in a few months. So check that out. And we also have a bunch of company presentations that are super high value, and worth checking out. And then if you want to connect with me, hello@zibtek.com is probably the best email to reach me.
Okay, so that's hello@zibtek.com, and they can definitely visit zibtek.com for more resources on technology and software, because you guys post regularly in regards to comparisons and what exists and what's most innovative, what's current, and what companies can be doing to enhance their software development. Yes?
Yep, you bet.
All right. Now, before we wrap up today, I just wanted to ask you, could you share with us a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote or this saying because it helps to refocus you and just help you to be channeled back on what it is that you're working on?
Yeah, I think it's maybe not so much a direct quote, but it really is more so that the idea that, feeling sorry for yourself or feeling down on yourself isn't helpful. It's not a helpful characteristic. Mm-hmm. So recognize that thought and then figure out what you should be doing and then go do that thing, right? So it's kind of like grandma's rule, right? The grandma's rule is you have to eat your vegetables before you can eat your dessert. And so, do the uncomfortable stuff first and then go to the fun stuff.
Right. Okay, brilliant. So we'll definitely have that in the show notes of this episode. Okay, well, thank you so much, Ian, for taking time out of your very busy schedule, sharing these awesome nuggets with us. We appreciate the fact that you were able to get really clear with us on what it is that ZipTech does, your experience in terms of software development and how technology is disrupting the whole business world, but more so how automation can help to enhance the customer experience for a business, and what are some strategies that they can employ to get that done. We really, really value the information you shared today.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
All right. So until next time, please feel free to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX and join our Facebook community, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. Thank you for listening to Navigating the Customer Experience. If you'd like to connect with us even more, please feel free to hop onto Facebook and join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. And of course, feel free to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.